So when we talk about improving lives, you guys hear me talk about it all the time. And so we thought it would be great if you got to hear from some of the actual innovators who are working in our med tech, medical device, our diagnostics, and our drug development space to understand when we talk about improving lives, the work that's being done here in Arizona right now to make life better for patients. And so with that, I'm going to ask our August panel to kick it off. And Dr. Potts, why don't you start? Just a brief, who are you?
Thank all of you for coming. It's very encouraging to us to see policy leaders here and just consistent support for biomedical innovation on both sides of the aisle here in Arizona. My name is Steve Potts. I've lived here for about 17 years. My wife is a native. I guess my 2 kids are now natives. My wife was a 1990 yearbook editor at Deer Valley High School. Oh, now we'll know her age. That's not good.
I can cut that out.
And my daughter was the 2020 yearbook editor at Deer Valley High School. So you can imagine the family conversations and how horrified my daughter was with the thought of maybe doing like a mother-daughter feature at yearbook. But as a side, we love Arizona. I built multiple companies here, and it's just great to be here. 20 plus years of work in cancer, first in diagnostics, which you'll hear about from Kevin, and in the last 10 years in cancer drug development.
Awesome. Tom?
So I'm Tom Eisiminger. I am the CEO of Regenesis Medical, one of the recipients of the NICE grant, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. This is my second career. Regenesis Medical is focused on complications of the diabetic foot, primarily the pain associated with it and the degradation of the nerve that eventually leads to the patient stubbing their toe and not being able to feel it. Imagine stepping on a Lego. They can't feel it. So how do you drive a car when you can't feel the brake, right? So we're working on that. This is my second career. I spent 26 years wearing a uniform, retired Army officer. So I have an affinity for veterans. The second part you see up there is VMLC. So I am the president of a nonprofit called the Veterans Medical Leadership Council. And we intervene, we do upstream suicide prevention. So we work with the social workers and the 3 VAs in the state. They identify veterans that are on the verge of losing their job. It's typically a vehicle's broken down and they can't get to work. We fund the repairs. Veterans that are on the verge of losing their home, we've paid mortgages, we've paid rent. And our premise is that if you intervene upstream, you prevent the fallout on the bottom. For those that don't know, age group 17 to 34 in the state of Arizona veterans, the suicide rate is 7 times higher than the average. That's a travesty. So we're working to stop that.
Thank you, Tom. Kevin?
Thanks, Tom. So I'm Kevin Parker. As Joan said, I'm chair of Arizona's Bioindustry Association. I also head operations for C&D Life Sciences, and we do a neurodiagnostic test, and I'll get back to that, I think, in a future question. I have been in Arizona for about 4.5 years. I moved down here actually with Exact Sciences, thanks to TGen and a project that turned into a lab and a technology that Exact Sciences purchased. Transferred over to C&D about a year ago.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So, Tom, most people don't realize that our medical device sector is our largest employment sector. It is also the one that has been booming in Arizona since long before the roadmap or AZBio was here. So when you look across our state, you've talked about what Regenesis is doing, and I want to know more about how that is making a difference. But you are also on the board of directors of AZBio in Washington, D.C., which is the national organization. So you get to see a landscape, very broad. Tell us a little bit about what Regenesis is doing and some of the other bright lights that you see out there.
So Regenesis is working in the VA in the state of Arizona. That's where we're getting our reimbursement. So we're helping veterans. 50% of the veterans we treat have diabetic neuropathy. And for those that don't know, eventually the pain gets to the point where you can't sleep. It starts affecting mental health. It affects all aspects of their health. We're trying to expand that. One of the biggest challenges is access to capital. If I had more money, I could do the clinical trials and bring it to market. The biggest challenge that I see right now in the ecosystem, and this is across the United States, not just Arizona, is that technology is moving faster than our regulatory bodies. So AI is going to change next week. It still takes 20 years to bring a product to market. It's a challenge. So this Arizona Health Innovation Trust Fund is huge. And we're going to benefit from that as a company. You saw Joan announce that. I will tell you that we know we've done a clinical trial. We know we reduced diabetic foot pain by 30%. We know that we're comparable to the drugs in terms of the effect, but we don't have those side effects. Anybody know what the biggest side effect of some of the drugs for diabetic neuropathy is? Suicidal ideation. That is not a problem we want. That's why we're non-invasive. And we think we can bring that to market, and we could do clinical trials a lot quicker if we had more access to capital. I can tell you that working with AZBio, some of the things we're working on is to get exemptions from the tariffs for medical device or medical technology. That'll be a big one. Because I can tell you CEOs are worried about how much their cost of goods is going to be now. Are we going to have to raise our prices, which we don't want to do because it impacts the patients. The other thing that AZBio is working on is how do we shorten that timeline to bring something that could make a huge difference in the healthcare system to market. So what we're going to do with that research money is we are going to study, can we repair damaged nerves? Or can we slow the degradation of the nerve so that they won't step on a Lego and not feel it? Now just imagine, if you will, that we can show that we can repair the nerves. Wouldn't you want something like that so you don't get to the point where somebody's going to stub their toe and end up with a below-the-knee amputation? Because that's where it ends up.
Yep. Thank you, Tom. So Kevin, some of you know my Aunt Joni lost her journey. It's reached the end of her Parkinson's journey last year. But it took several years for doctors to actually figure out what her problem was and how to treat it. Kevin, can you explain what C&D Life Sciences is doing?
Sure, thanks, Joan. So C&D invented a test called SYN1, and basically what SYN1 does is looks for abnormal alpha-synuclein proteins, basically proteins in the nerve endings of your skin. And we're able to test for that by doing a minimally invasive skin biopsy instead of the other types of treatment, which comes with like a spinal tap. So a lot easier for patients. We've been able to show 95% specificity and sensitivity with that test, so it's very effective. And the difference, to Joan's point, is it shortens that patient's journey. So the test is able to tell, or to help clinicians tell, whether you have Parkinson's, maybe Lewy body dementia, or some other related diseases. And the challenge for clinicians is if they don't get the right diagnosis up front, it's difficult to treat properly. And so, to Joan's point, patients can go through a pretty long journey. It's also costly to them and to the full system. So we're able to work with patients and clinicians to shorten their journey.
Thank you. So Steve is what we call a serial entrepreneur. So what are you working on right now, and how is it going to make life better?
Thanks, Joan. Yeah, I don't do anything with cereal, but definitely do things in the area of cancer. So we've been working for about 3 years on looking at particular genetic mutations in cancer, and then basically putting the team together, the plans, the science to work on several drugs. We want to get into the clinic in early 2017. And I'm still in stealth, coming out of stealth, so, but we have raised over 50 million to date. And this is a Phoenix-based company. So really appreciate all the work the city of Phoenix has done to make this such a great ecosystem. So these are big cancer areas. So think about colorectal cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer. And the field has kind of always been, I use a word called oncopolitics. What I mean by that is if you go to a big cancer center with breast cancer, you will never end up in the hall where they treat prostate cancer or lung cancer or GBM. But it turns out, there are molecular footprints that are defining that go across these cancers. So our approach, and my last drug was the same way, it was a pan-tumor approval. So you're looking at cancers that can really go across different tumor types, but still hit the molecular driver of those diseases. So we're pretty excited. This is a very competitive field, so we won't be telling a lot of detail of exactly what we're doing. I could talk about other drugs we've done. The team of 10, these are very experienced drug developers. I've been involved in 2 drugs in 25 years of cancer work that are now given to patients. Ran into a doctor at Barrow Neurologic Institute. It was an amazing experience. This is why drugs get so addicting, at least how I think of them. He's caught me in the hall. He said, "Steve, that last drug in my GBM patient just shrunk the tumor. I've never seen a shrinkage like that in a GBM patient." And that's in a molecularly driven tumor. It's called TRK fusion, and that drug got approved. And but that keeps you going. That keeps you so motivated to want to do it again. This is a hard. This takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of funds. The only correlate I could kind of think of is think about all the work that went into creating a broadening of the I-17 corridor. That is a great highway now. I can't, a Sunday night experience driving home, Friday, it's totally different now, right? Awesome work. That didn't just happen. That was hundreds of millions of dollars of planning, of thought, of work, of execution. And cancer drugs are kind of like that too. You look at something, you think, if we work really hard on this, we think we could really do it, put a really good drug on the market. But it will take hundreds of millions of dollars. It will take a lot of work. It'll take a ton of planning, and you'll have some things that don't work out. So that's cancer drug development. We're really excited about it, and I love building these companies here in Arizona.
Thank you. And so, round numbers, I want to clarify that for a minute because, as you heard earlier, drug development is hard. Interestingly, there is a lot of work going on at our universities around drug development. But it doesn't get commercialized here because our companies, our investors, don't really understand drug development.
Yeah.
And you don't invest in things you don't understand. So the way that we are trying to tackle that problem is with the Health Innovation Trust Fund, where experienced leaders from not just in Arizona but across the country will help us determine which of those therapies have the best chance of success, and then help them with small investments until they get to the point where they have proof of concept, so that then bigger investments will follow. Mm-hmm. Because most of our companies here are not led by Steve Potts. Steve Potts.
Thank goodness.
No, but if you're in a room this size, I'm going to steal your story. If you're in a room this size and you ask everybody who's working on cancer at a cancer conference to stand up, 95% of the people in the room will stand up. If you ask the people that are still standing, sit down, if you have not actually gotten a drug into patients commercially, there'll be 3, 4, maybe people in the room that are still standing. And Steve is one of those people. And so that's why he is able to go around the country and raise that kind of money. But for our Arizona companies, if we do not help them get to the point where they are investable, they are not going to be able to succeed here.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, just as you guys will watch Shark Tank, where you have a minute to pitch whatever the idea is. And fundraising is kind of like that. I call it Shark Tank for nerds. I testified in Congress, that's the term I use. But it is like when I first raised, 10 years ago with less of a track record, it took 14 months, 137, I counted them, 137 no's of Shark Tank for Nerds, where you go in front of very smart people and they're grilling you on every possible thing that you're doing and all the 50 ways it won't work, et cetera. So it can be kind of dehumanizing almost. But 137 no's to get 3 yeses over 14 months. That was the $25 million raise. $50 million raise took the same thing about a year. So it's hard, and I think that there's a lot of great ideas here in this state, but it does take, the track record. This last company raised over 50. I made 3 phone calls and had 3 yeses, which was super awesome. But I will say that, I think the difference between when you look at who's here, who's moved here, this state has a lot of great people moving in science, and I'm seeing families that are really good scientists that we need in this state. They love being here. They like being here because of the schools. They hear about them, the public schools, the gifted and talented programs. Keep investing in that infrastructure. The Phoenix airport being easy to fly in and out of, that's huge for me. I don't think of that for biotech, but for me, having an airport, the city of Phoenix has really done a great job running, where you can get in and out of Phoenix, is huge when I've got board members coming from all over the world. So it's changed in that it's much easier, I think, to draw really top minds to Arizona. What is still hard, though, is getting money here in Arizona. And if you look at like a typical Miami, these high net worth families moving to Miami, a lot of them have come from New Jersey, where guess what, there's pharma. They've come from Minnesota, where there's pharma. They've come from Boston, where there's pharma. They've made money in drug development. So they're comfortable investing again in drug development. And I think the challenge here is we just do not have as many high net worth people. They know about cancer. I mean, sadly, we all know about cancer, right, from somebody in our family that's probably struggling with it right now. But they don't know, and they haven't experienced the awesome impact in patients and also the awesome impact in investors from this field. And so I think the challenge here, Joan, is really what she's doing at AZ Advances is fantastic. And that is exactly the kind of thing we need to do that Texas has done so well with CPRIT. But it's also just, I think, getting people that really want to make a difference, and they're experiencing neurodegeneration, they're experiencing these diagnostic issues, they're experiencing cancer, but getting from that to, I can actually invest in companies that are doing it because I have a history in my family of actually doing really well financially in doing that. And so it's just hard, I think, to get someone who's come from real estate or some other industry to be aware that here in Arizona they can invest in these companies.
Now, Kevin, C&D Life Sciences had multiple founders in multiple states. What was the deciding factor for Arizona?
Yeah, so to your point, there were founders in Massachusetts, which is a state that you highlighted, and then also here in Arizona. And the deciding factor primarily is Honor Health invested money into the company, as well as one of the founders was more experienced with doing lab work here, and so he decided to set it up here.
Yeah. And Tom, Regenesis has been an Arizona success story, but talk about the long march.
Well, let me amplify what Steve said. So our top 3 investors are from Atlanta, Boston, common theme, and the other one's from Saginaw, Michigan. I don't know how that one fit in there, but it wasn't.
International company.
Well, there you go. But it's international. But it was in Arizona. We had some early angel investors, but I can tell you our company's been around for 2 decades, and it's only been for the last 4 years that we're profitable. We were burning cash before that because there was a lot of innovation. We're doing everything, we're bootstrapping everything right now. We're paying for all our innovation except for this coming year because we did get that very nice grant. So it's a challenge, and I mentioned that earlier. The runway to get to a reimbursement out of Medicare is long. And I would say it's like a Beatles song. It's a long and winding road. So.
Thank you. And the last thing, so it's my job to ask for money. I ask you for membership dues. I ask you for sponsorship dues. I ask you to invest in our companies. I ask you to help us with grant development. Sometimes I feel like all I do is ask. But I do want our panelists as we finish up this discussion during a season of giving. To not just talk about what they're doing with their companies, but to talk about what they are doing in the community. So I've been at AZBio for 15 years. I've been the chairman of the board of the Opportunity Through Entrepreneurship Foundation here in Arizona for over 20 years, and volunteered my time to help our entrepreneurs bring new life-changing innovations to Arizona. And if you look on the slide, each of our panelists has that. So quickly, guys, your closing thought. Tell us about the charity that you are working with to make life better for people in Arizona. Steve.
Yeah, for me, it's International Cancer Advocacy Network, or ICANN. And she's been doing this for 20 years, and basically it's the unmet need of you get cancer and you get this molecular test where you sequence the cancer and you have no clue how to read it. I barely know how to read it. And helping understand and navigate patients from this is kind of what the sequence is saying about my tumor to Barrow Neurologic Institute might have a trial for that, or Mayo Clinic might have a trial for that, or U of A has a trial for that, and helping patients, all volunteer, navigate from that molecular sequence to actually figuring out where to go and be seen. Wonderful. That's a volunteer group.
Thank you.
Organization.
Tom, give me an example of something special that VMLC has done.
Oh my gosh, I can't name them all. I'll give you an example. These veterans don't put themselves in these positions. I'll share a story of a Navy veteran that his wife was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. He quit his job to be her caregiver. He was older like me, had gray hair, but he gave up his job. And she lived for 13 months, but then she passed. And he was a little older. It was tough for him to get a job. And they'd spent their life savings. They were going to lose their home. This veteran lost his wife. What's going to happen if he loses his home? This is the spiral we talk about. I lose my job, I lose my home, I lose my connection to friends, family, and associates. I lose my purpose, I lose hope, and you end up a statistic. We prevented that.
Thank you. Kevin, there's a lot of people that don't even know where to start. Talk about the Open Table.
So the Open Table is an organization that started, nonprofit that started about 20 years ago here in Phoenix. And what that organization does, which I volunteer for, they use the power of social capital to solve social determinative health problems. So as an example, we had an individual who was trying to get on a liver cancer transplant list, or liver transplant list. Their dental health was so poor, and your dental health is connected to that they couldn't get on the list. And so we were able to network basically through people we knew to find a dentist who was willing to diagnose that individual's challenges, and then a different dentist who was willing to then do the work to correct the dental problem, and that person got the work done and got successfully on the transplant list. Essentially, the concept is if you open your phone, you have at least 20 contacts you could call right now to try to help you solve a problem. What would be the power if you could do that to solve somebody else's problem who's really on the edge and doesn't have that same kind of power and network?
So these are just a couple of stories from people in our community, and I can tell you, because AZBio has 300 members, they employ 365,000 people in Arizona, and I get to hear all their stories. We truly are improving lives. We truly are an opportunity to not just invest in the future, but to create a future that we all want our children to live in. But as we wrap up, I want to thank all of you for attending today. I wanted to thank our sponsors who supported AZBio throughout the year and will be supporting AZBio again next year, and equally to our elected leaders for your leadership and guidance and for every single one of you, because no matter what you do, whether you're a lawyer, an accountant, a scientist, a doctor, a nurse, a researcher, or like me, the person that takes the trash out when nobody else does, you are making a difference in people's lives. That is the greatest gift that you can give anybody this holiday season and every day of the year. Thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.